She was slapped in front of 200 students, but what she did next silenced the entire school, exposed every bully, and flipped the power dynamic forever. If you love emotional justice, shocking twists, and stories that make you cheer, subscribe now so you never miss the next one. Ava Morgan never expected her life to become the kind of whispered legend students told in trembling voices years later, but everything changed the morning she walked into Crestwood High's auditorium carrying nothing more than her books, her quiet dignity, and a courage she hadn't yet realized she possessed, because Ava was known as the invisible girl, the one who ate lunch alone, spoke softly, excelled quietly, and blended into the background while her school's social royalty, especially Brielle Hathaway and her circle of perfectly polished bullies, made the hallways their personal kingdom, ruling it with cruelty disguised as popularity. Yet Ava endured them with silence, not because she was weak, but because she believed battles weren't worth fighting unless the truth itself demanded a voice, and that moment arrived on the day she was scheduled to present her senior project in front of the entire student body, a project she had built for months, a project about resilience, justice, and the hidden power of ordinary people, and she was excited, nervous, yes, but proud, until the auditorium doors swung open behind her and Brielle's sharp, mocking voice cut through the chatter like a serrated blade, calling Ava a fraud, a nobody, a charity case nerd pretending to matter, and doing it loud enough for everyone to hear. But Ava kept walking to the stage, refusing to give Brielle the satisfaction of seeing her flinch, though she felt her heartbeat hammering like a trapped bird in her chest, because today mattered. This project mattered, not for grades, not for teachers, but for herself, for the version of Ava who spent too long shrinking when the world tried to make her feel small. And as she placed her folders onto the podium, Brielle marched right up to her in front of nearly 200 students filling the bleachers, smirking as if the world belonged to her, and in a moment so quick no one saw it coming, Brielle slapped Ava across the face with a sharp crack that echoed through the room, freezing everyone, teachers included, in stunned silence. The slap wasn't just painful, it was humiliating, red blooming across Ava's cheek, her ears ringing. But even as laughter trickled through the crowd and Brielle tossed her hair like she had just scored another cruel victory, something inside Ava snapped, not in anger, but in clarity, a kind of fierce, crystalline realization that she had been allowing people like Brielle to define her worth for far too long, and the auditorium, sensing something shifting in the air, fell unnaturally still as Ava lifted her head, her eyes shining not with tears but with the fire of someone who had finally had enough, and in a voice steady enough to silence even Brielle, Ava said, "Thank you. Because now everyone will finally see who you really are," and with those words she turned on the projector, revealing to the entire audience the first slide of her presentation, security footage from the school's own hallway cameras, which she had legally accessed as part of her project's research on bullying patterns, showing months' worth of Brielle and her friends tormenting students, stealing homework, vandalizing lockers, spreading rumors, and laughing about it afterward. Footage teachers had never seen because Brielle's mother donated heavily to the school and teachers were too afraid to challenge her daughter, but Ava's project bypassed all of that because she did everything by the book, backed by the school counselor who approved it, and the more the footage played, the more the crowd shifted, murmured, gasped, because this wasn't just bullying, it was targeted cruelty, exposed for all to witness, and as Brielle screamed for Ava to turn it off, threatening lawsuits and expulsion, Ava calmly advanced the slide to reveal interviews she had conducted anonymously with victims too frightened to speak publicly, their faces blurred but their voices raw and trembling as they described the psychological toll, the fear, the humiliation, the sense of helplessness Brielle had inflicted upon them, voices Brielle tried to dismiss even then, but no one was listening to her anymore because the truth had already taken root in the room. Then Ava revealed the final part of her project, statistics showing how unchecked aggression escalates, how environments shaped by fear breed lasting harm, how silence enables abuse, and she ended with a question that struck harder than Brielle's slap ever could. Why are we teaching students that cruelty wins as long as no one speaks against it? And for a moment the entire auditorium was utterly silent, every eye on Ava as if seeing her for the first time, not invisible, not weak, but powerful. And then Principal Carver, who had entered mid-presentation after hearing the commotion, stepped forward with a grave expression, pausing the projector and asking Ava quietly if she had followed school policy to obtain her footage and interviews, to which she nodded and produced signed approval forms, and when the principal confirmed everything was legitimate, he turned slowly toward Brielle, whose face had drained of color, and announced in front of the entire school that she and her accomplices were being suspended pending an official investigation, and that senior privileges, including prom, valedictorian eligibility, and travel exemptions, were immediately revoked until further notice. the crowd erupting into whispers while Brielle screamed that this was unfair, illegal, impossible, but her friends were already pulling away, trying to distance themselves from the disaster, and then the unexpected twist came. Ava wasn't done. She walked back to the podium and said, "This isn't about revenge. I don't want anyone expelled. I want change," and the sincerity in her voice shook the room again, because she wasn't seeking punishment, she was demanding accountability and reform, and she proposed a student-led initiative to support victims, teach conflict resolution, and create a reporting system that bypassed bias, something Crestwood desperately needed, and students began clapping, first a few, then dozens, then nearly everyone, rising to their feet as Brielle stumbled backward toward the exit, wildly calling her lawyer father, but the moment had already swallowed her, because now the school saw Ava for who she was, a leader, a voice for the voiceless, someone who transformed cruelty into catalyst, pain into purpose, and later that afternoon when the video of the slap and the presentation went viral online, people from around the world flooded her comments with support, universities reached out to her, journalists emailed requesting interviews, and the school board launched a full investigation leading to new policies, new protections, and a permanent record entry for Brielle that her family couldn't erase, and though Ava never sought fame, what she gained was far more valuable: respect, community, confidence, and the knowledge that she had changed something real, something bigger than herself. And months later, at graduation, when Ava was awarded the district's Student Leadership Medal, the auditorium once again packed with hundreds of people, the same way it had been the day Brielle slapped her. Ava stepped onto the stage with her head held high, her once bruise now long healed, but the memory fueling her strength, and as she looked out at the crowd, she realized that sometimes the moments meant to break you become the very moments that define you, because when bullies slapped her in front of 200 students, she didn't crumble, she changed everything.